Pretty much everybody and their brothers picking Ohio State to beat Notre Dame and win the national championship. And I get it. They should be the favorite. But there's one way that Notre Dame could win. It's with a heroic effort from their captain and quarterback, Riley Leonard. And make no mistake, he's got to be Superman. Because Ohio State's going to score, even if Notre Dame plays great on defense. So Riley and this offense is going to have to find ways to manufacture points. And you can't just do it with one move. After all, what makes Superman Superman is his versatility. Yes, he has the laser vision, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. He has superhuman strength and speed and so much more. But we all know in the saga of Superman, his weakness is kryptonite. And for Leonard in this Irish offense, their kryptonite is a consistent passing game against good teams. The only way Superman wins is by somehow defying his weakness, and that's exactly what they have to do. Because you aren't going to consistently run over or by this Buckeye defense. They're just too good. So in order to save the world in the eyes of the Irish faithful, he's going to have his best game ever throwing the ball, and he needs to do it early. So throw on the cape, kiss Lois Lane, and for Notre Dame's sake, let's hope there's a phone booth nearby, because come kickoff time, Superman has to show up, because he truly is their only hope. David Cohn, very interesting matchup between Ohio State and Notre Dame. What are some things, or maybe one main thing you're looking at in this game as we get ready to have the finale of the first ever 12-team college football playoff?
Well, I like your take on Riley Leonard. He does need to be a hero, and I don't think it can just be on the ground. I think he needs to impress us through the air in a way that, he hasn't done consistently throughout the season. And that really brings me to my biggest key for the national championship, which is turnovers for Will Howard, because I don't think Will Howard has to be a hero with the offensive firepower that the Buckeyes have. So it'll be interesting to me on whether or not Notre Dame can turn him over and how well he protects the football. Now, when I was doing my research on this and the turnovers for Will Howard throughout the year, I did stumble upon something interesting. There was a 6-game stretch in the middle of the season for the Buckeyes where in 5 of those games he threw interceptions, and the Buckeyes won all 5 of those games. The 6th game was against Oregon, where he didn't throw an interception, and they lost that game. So there may be a faction of Buckeyes fans who are saying, maybe trying to draw a parallel to what Georgia did this season, which was, when Carson Beck turned the football over, we were averaging even more points per game. I think we can overcome an interception or two. This isn't Marshall. Right? This isn't Iowa you're playing in the middle of the season. You can't sustain turnovers in the national championship and against this level of competition when you're playing the likes of Notre Dame. He threw 2 interceptions against Michigan. They lost that game 13-10. He threw a crucial interception last week against Texas, and that was right when Texas was fighting, knocking on the doorstep to be able to come back. If there was any semblance of an offense for Texas, that would have really, I think, put the dagger in the heart there. So Will Howard, don't turn the football over. There's more than enough firepower on offense for the Buckeyes to win the national championship without him having to force things.
Well, to that point, the only reason Notre Dame's here is because they've come up with those big turnovers in key moments.
Lead the nation.
I feel like Notre Dame's secondary has made the most big plays when other teams are in the red zone, whether, I know, Blaine, we talked about the man coverage. You're going to get into that. But Notre Dame beats you with complementary football. So before I go to you, Blaine, though, Cone, to that point, if you're Chip Kelly, and you're looking at this game and you're saying, our team is better than Notre Dame's as long as we don't screw it up. Now, Notre Dame fans won't believe that. I get that, but I think most of us think that's the case. Do you have a more conservative game plan, or maybe take more things underneath early to not put Will Howard in that position? How would you call it, or do you just dance with the one that brought you? We're gonna take our shots.
Don't go getting in his head. Like, don't allude to the fact that, hey, you can't turn the football over in this game. Call the offense the way you've been calling it, but keep in mind that Will Howard, your quarterback, will throw the football to the other team. To your point about Notre Dame, not only do they lead the nation in takeaways, they lead the nation in points off takeaways. So traditionally, when they do get a big turnover, the way Texas did the other day but didn't capitalize, Notre Dame has been capitalizing on those turnovers. I think I'm just calling it straight up, and I'm interested to see how much they use him in the quarterback run game. Not a lot last week against Texas, but in crucial moments, and Blaine, you were the one who called those moments. A lot of empty sets, getting him in huge first down pickups, too.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes out to empty, there's nothing that puts your defense in more of a stranglehold with a quarterback that can do what Riley Leonard does. Kind of got me thinking a little bit. When's the last time Ohio State faced a guy like Riley Leonard? Have they played a guy like this? I guess you could say Nico might be the closest thing.
Dylan could run a little bit,
but not
different.
A true dual threat,
He's
right?
not going to run Q power and Q counter at you 10 times.
I think the biggest factor that we have to look at when it comes to that might be the outcome of this game is what Notre Dame does on defense. Notre Dame, from a defensive standpoint, leads the nation in man coverage. It leads the nation in cover one, which is one high safety, and the rest of the team runs man. But the thing about that, and I think they've been doing that well, and they're the best at they do, graded out the number one team in the nation. I just don't think you're going to be able to do that against Ohio State. And this is why, if you go back and you look at that Texas game, Texas ran heavy zone coverage. Heavy zone coverage that was slanted over.
Umbrella up top.
Umbrella, absolutely slanted over Ohio State's best receiver, Jeremiah Smith. But you're not going to be able to sit back and run man coverage against these guys because, one, Will Howard grades out second in the nation. I will repeat this, second in the nation against man coverage. So Will looks at man and he likes it extremely well. But it's not only Jeremiah Smith you have to worry about, right? Ohio State does a great job getting Mbuka, moving him in motions, creating mismatches and problems. And another guy that kind of came through in the Texas game, that's Carnell Tate. Made some big plays and big moments. And another one is Henderson at running back, who's an absolute nightmare when it comes to matchup coverage with your linebacker. So can Notre Dame sustain? Because I don't think Notre Dame's offense is good enough just to sit back and run man coverage and hope that you can stop these guys, because you're not going to. Ohio State is built to beat man coverage. Yeah. So I think if you look at that, that is going to be a huge key. And we talked about it earlier. Does Notre Dame change their identity to have a better chance to win this national championship game, or is it too late to do that?
Well, and that's the conundrum you find yourself in. Let's not forget, Drew Aller missed some wide open guys. It wasn't like that Penn State was just locked up the whole game in man coverage. I go back to the goal line play. You run a perfect pick route to hit the back out of the backfield on the arrow, and you underthrow him. There was multiple times in that game where Drew Aller wasn't able to take advantage of schematically what Andy Kotelnicki, because everybody knows Notre Dame's running man. This is no secret. And I think Notre Dame does a good job matching coverage out of man, which can give you some versatility there, keeps you from getting picked. But if you're Notre Dame and you're Al Golden and everything has worked so well defensively, do you change your stripes, which shows weakness to your players? Which is basically saying, guys, this is what we're best at. This is what we've done, but we're going to change it because I don't think we're good enough. Or, because you got a couple options. Texas's defensive game plan, I thought, was the best one you can roll out against Ohio State. Keep everything in front of you, play umbrella coverage, but in order to do that, to keep those safeties deep, to play that umbrella coverage, you have to be able to match up with an even box. You can't overload the box to stop the run. Texas, outside of the first drive, was able to do that. I was watching the game in the hospital room as my wife was as my wife was laying with our brand new child. It's just still a mismatch to me these whole 3 days. But I don't think Notre Dame is going to do that. So here's what I think you're going to see. Pressure on Will Howard, because you can't sit back there and if you're not going to get there with four, be able to play man coverage and let those freak shows that you just talked about. Because Carnell Tate is a premier wide receiver. Egbuka is a one for everybody else when you don't have Jeremiah Smith. And we're not even talking about G. Scott at tight end. So, David, is the answer pressure? If we're going to run man coverage, even if it ends up being zero, at least we're making him make a quick decision instead of sitting back there.
Well, certainly they do need to get to Will Howard, and that speaks to my point, which is if you're able to get home to him, you increase your chances that he will throw you the football. The question then for me still remains about coverage, because there's a lot of different ways to bring pressure. That doesn't automatically mean man coverage behind it. You can bring fire zone pressures, which I think would be
Texas
good.
did that.
The interception he threw was against a catting out, either defensive end or linebacker to the boundary side. He threw it right to him. I think we talked about this with Jalen Milroe throughout the season. Like, he will throw you the football in zone coverage. When they see man, they eat it alive because it makes the reads easier. One more point to what you said about Notre Dame on defense. I guess there is an element that if you just completely change up everything you've done that has worked when you get to the last game of the season, that could signal weakness. At the same time, I hope that the Notre Dame players on defense would be able to trust the defensive coordinator to say, like, hey, this is our opponent. This is the best game plan to beat our opponent. Don't you think they would get on board with saying, like, hey, we're down for whatever game plan is best?
That's a maturity question. The way I would frame it is this. Hey, guys, listen, we all know we run a lot of man coverage. Ohio State knows that. We know that. God knows that. The Pope knows that. What if we were to show a lot of man coverage looks and turn it into zone post snap?
Yeah.
That would be my answer. That's another thing outside of saying, hey, let's walk guys up to the line of scrimmage, whether we're bringing bullets, whether we're bringing cross snakes, whether we're bringing cats or whatever. I think Al Golden, who's an incredible schematic guy. I mean, he's really, really good. Do you start disguising coverages to try and confuse Will Howard? That's the biggest question. But I think they are mature enough to handle it. But still, deep down in your core, we're changing what we do. And I think that kind of brings in some weakness.
Yeah, two things. One, if you're going to blitz Will Howard, you better tackle well. You better tackle well because these guys at receiver are really good at breaking tackles.
And Henderson out of the backfield. Look at right before halftime.
What I mentioned earlier. And a lot of people don't realize this, but Texas was the biggest front seven Ohio State's seen the entire year. Texas could run a light box and stop the run against Ohio State. Notre Dame's not built the same way Texas is. Notre Dame is not huge when it comes to the front seven. So I get it, if you're going to bring pressure, that's fine. But if you are going to drop out and play zone, and you have an even box or a light box, can you stop the Ohio State run the way Texas did? I don't think they can.
Hey, what's up, YouTube? Want to get to 200,000 subs. Let's make it happen because I believe in you.